but despite being genius characters, they're still far from being the actual strongest characters there, and this is shown to us by Bisky, Razor, and also Genthru. Hey, what's up everybody? It's LeeLos, and today we're talking about why Gon versus Genthru is genius. Stay steady in pursuit of your dreams and goals. You're born to win, you're made for greatness, and I definitely believe in you guys. Keep up the great work each and every day. So, Gon versus Genthru is a battle that takes place between an unhinged maniac and one of the main protagonists of Hunter x Hunter. Today we're going to analyze every single moment and ability that's displayed throughout this battle to explain overall why Gon versus Genthru is genius. So Genthru himself is genuinely underrated. Genthru has two different Hatsu abilities that are very versatile and dangerous. His first Hatsu ability is called Little Flower. With Little Flower, Genthru channels his Nen into his hands and uses it to create a small explosion. His second ability, Countdown, is absolutely devastating. This is a conditional Nen ability stated to be 10 times stronger than Little Flower, and the range of this ability is magnitudes greater. With Little Flower, Genthru is only shown using it in two hands at most, but with Countdown, he conjured more than 60 explosives at the same time. Considering that just one Countdown explosion is 10 times stronger than Little Flower, and he made more than 60 of them at once, this is further proof that conditional Nen is a massive multiplier for power. Kurapika does state that if Nen multiplies your power, then conditional Nen is like an exponential increase to your power. Togashi shows us this insane strength early on, and the way he prepares Gon and Killua to face Genthru is truly genius. So Gon and Killua, they start the Greed Island arc essentially fodder characters compared to not only Genthru, but also to the majority of the monsters in the game. And you get a clear understanding of them being geniuses due to them surpassing Bisky's expectations numerous times throughout their training, but despite being genius characters, they're still far from being the actual strongest characters there, and this is shown to us by Bisky, Razor, and also Genthru. Now, when Gon fights Genthru, this is a very fascinating battle because you see that Gon puts together everything that he learned throughout the arc into this one fight. A big portion of the Greed Island arc was Gon and Killua learning more advanced Nen techniques, which in many cases was just a combination of two more fundamental Nen techniques at the same time. For example, Ken is just 10 plus Ren. Then Ryu, where you're moving your aura around, allocating it to different parts of your body for attack and defense. That is Ken plus Gyo at the same time. And when Gon's fighting Genthru, this is the first time we see Gon engage in an advanced strategical Nen battle. A lot of the foundations of Nen combat are displayed throughout this fight, and they exist throughout the rest of the series. The concept that being an experienced Nen user is a huge advantage gets driven home very well in this fight. Essentially, the entire time Gon's fighting Genthru, Gon's basically getting slapped silly due to Genthru just having more experience and more aura. So this tells us that in Nen combat, having experience truly matters, and fundamental ideas of Nen combat like aura output and aura capacity are driven home in these fights as well. It's even mentioned in Killua's fight with one of the other minions that Killua, in terms of just raw martial arts skill, is superior to Genthru's minion, but Genthru's minion had more raw total aura than Killua did, so as a result, Killua wasn't able to do considerable damage, and Killua made up for that gap by using an elaborate plan. Genthru's experience is shown to us in a lot of subtle ways throughout this fight. Just by seeing how Gon blocked his first attack, Genthru was able to instantly tell that Gon knew what his ability was. This scene was put here purely to show us the value of battle experience. Genthru has a line of dialogue where he says his aura flow control is rudimentary. It fails to catch up to the speed of his attacks. So this is showing us that even though Gon has learned Ryu, he's not really a master of Ryu yet. His physical punches are going faster than his aura is. This is the exact same concept as Yuji in Jujutsu Kaisen throwing a punch, but then his cursed energy lagged behind it and it made like two attacks at the same time. But in Hunter x Hunter, there's no buff here. There's no advantage to doing that. It's nothing but a disadvantage. His attacks are weaker because his fist is going faster faster than his aura can flow. And it's further showing you that there's a difference between training with a Nen ability and using it in an actual fight. Also, the concept of Gyo and Ryu having math percentages to them is just genuinely a genius concept. Before seeing this in Hunter x Hunter, I really had never seen any other shonen do that. It's just a very smart concept to have percentages allocated towards how much energy you're putting towards offense, how much energy you're putting towards defense. It adds an entirely new level of strategy to the combat system. And I like the fact that through experience, you simply get better at doing that. When Genthru's fighting Gon, he can tell almost immediately that Gon has a lot of potential and talent, but he's still new to Nen combat. So Genthru automatically has an advantage due to simply being more experienced in Nen combat. It makes Nen feel more like a martial art, like a real life martial art, than it does just a supernatural superpower that you're reading about in a manga. It also makes being a Nen master seem more important because you're seeing someone like Gon, he has more potential and far more talent than Genthru, but he's still losing to him simply because Genthru is more experienced. This implies that actual Nen masters that are far more experienced than Genthru would be able to clown Genthru in a very similar way. Knuckle also has a line of dialogue where he says if Gon and Killua were to beat him in a fight, they would grow dramatically due to having a big boost in their confidence. Having experience in actual Nen combat, it gives you a different buff than just training or sparring would. And this is also stated when Gon and Killua are fighting against Beanalt. Killua has a line of dialogue where he says he can't believe how much faster they're improving due to being in a life or death battle. There's just certain things that it seems you can only learn by actually getting experience in the field of Nen combat. And it's a good way to counteract Gon and Killua being geniuses. Things that are supposed to take them months, they're learning in weeks or days, and they're consistently doing that throughout the Greed Island arc. Even though that is true and that's still happening, they're still not top one in the verse. They still need to put time in to actually having fights, to actually using their abilities in combat and learning from their opponents. These are things that have to happen. It's kind of like you still have to go through the process of becoming a Nen master. Unless you're someone from the Dark Continent, like a Royal Guard or Meruem, they're essentially born Nen masters. Or, I mean, you can kind of make some shortcuts. Kurapika kind of found some cheats around that system by using life-risking conditional Nens over and over. For the most part, to become an actual Nen master in Hunter x Hunter, you have to have a large number of fights and learn from your opponents, learn how to defeat people stronger than you, learn how to work your way out of like tough situations. We also see characters get considerably stronger when they're pushed beyond their limits. We see that happen with Killua. He actually develops the concept of Whirlwind while he's pushed beyond his limit fighting the Ortho siblings. And we see Shoot develops his ultimate technique after getting his leg crushed in the Chimera Ant arc. Gon versus Genthru is essentially a foundational battle that sets up a lot of the Nen combat for the rest of the series. This fight against Genthru, more than any other battle so far up to this point in the series, shows us that Gon is actually an insane person. He knows that he was given a plan to fight Genthru because Genthru is stronger than him. Gon is in his mind reflecting over Bisky telling him, hey bro, he will actually knock you out if you try to fight him. Do not do that. Stick to the plan. The moment he starts beating you up, stick to the plan and then beat him using the plan. If Gon had followed the plan Bisky and Killua laid out for him, after getting punched this first time, Gon would have hit Genthru with the gasoline, activated the pitfall, and then one-shot him with rock. The fight would have ended right there with Gon only getting hit one time. But simply because Gon is a mad lad, he said, I'm gonna make him use his ability first. That's actually crazy because Genthru is showing him that he's capable of beating him without using his ability, but Gon says, I don't care, I'm going to force you to use your ability anyway. It's showing you that Gon actually has the perfect mindset of a hunter. Jing actually talks about this too. Hunters are egomaniacs that will sacrifice everything to get what they want. That's one of the only things Gon has ever heard Jing say in his entire life, and Gon embodies this mentality naturally. It's showing you a couple things. It's showing you, one, Gon is naturally designed to become an extremely successful hunter by nature. That's not something he has to learn. That's just kind of how he naturally is. And on top of that, he's pretty much exactly like Jing. So Gon is willing to put himself in a situation to go beyond his limits simply due to pride. It's a crazy thing to do, but this kind of Nen experience is actually very valuable because by the end of this fight, Gon learns that he can beat people that are stronger than he is. So as Gon is fighting Genthru, he actually does succeed in what he initially set out to do. He forces Genthru to use his Hatsu ability. Genthru's mentality is, Gon has a very strong mindset, so I have to break his spirit with overwhelming power. So that's why Genthru chooses to use his Hatsu ability. So when Genthru's using Little Flower, the explosion ability, he's putting Nen into his hand, but he's also protecting his hand with Gyo. And if he's just pretending to use Little Flower, he's not protecting his hand with Gyo. And Gon had to train specifically to be able to tell the difference between the two. The fact that he can use his ability to fake someone out, it's kind of similar to what Gon does with his John-Ken combo fakes in the next arc. But due to his training with Bisky, he only gets caught by this one time. He adapts to it the second time and starts blocking these Little Flower fake out attacks. To counter Gon, who's countering Genthru's Little Flower fake outs, Genthru says he's going to start using Little Flower in both hands now. The problem with this is if he uses it in both hands, Gon doesn't have enough aura to block both. One of the explosions is going to do significant damage to him. And this is the scene where we see Gon is actually genuinely fundamentally crazy. Instead of choosing just one hand that he could protect with Nen, like most people would have done in this scenario, he gives up on both hands. He puts 30% of his aura into one hand to just barely keep it alive. He puts his remaining 70% of his aura into a kick and kicks Genthru in the head. This is a very crazy moment. Not only does Gon terrify a person who's fundamentally insane and has a fundamentally insane person calling Gon crazy, not only that, but Gon actually goes beyond his limits, beyond what he really should be capable of. He's not only forcing Genthru to use all of his Hatsu abilities, because right after this, Genthru tries to use Countdown. In this fight, Gon has forced Genthru to use Little Flower, not just in one hand, but in both hands. And he's forcing him to use Countdown, which is beyond his initial goal, but he also lands decent damage on Genthru without following a plan at all. Just a straight up fight, a straight up Nen battle. He's actually able to damage Genthru, who's using his Hatsu ability. Then on top of all of that, Gon starts charging up Rock immediately after this. He was actually about to win the fight here. Genthru was genuinely wobbled by this kick. The manga makes it much more clear where it shows his vision is actually blurry after getting kicked in the head. So Gon really was about to just win this fight against a much stronger, much more experienced opponent simply by being crazy and going beyond his limits in creative ways. The only reason Genthru survives this rock is because Genthru trips over a rock on the ground that he couldn't even see. Just pure luck saved Genthru here. So genuinely, in a real Nen battle, in this exact scenario, Gon was actually able to beat Genthru without using a plan at all, just being crazy. This echoes the same thing that Morel said, that in a Nen battle, things can change in an instant, so you can't really tell who's going to win based on how much aura someone has, and on top of all of that, you typically don't know your opponent's ability. So Genthru didn't know Gon's ability, wasn't expecting him to just have an ability like this that could make Gon strong enough to one-shot him, wasn't expecting Gon to be an actual crazy person, sacrifice one of his hands just to land an attack, and Gon actually was about to win the fight, but luck saved Genthru in this very moment. And even though Gon's the one who's taken more damage, the more confident fighter here is Gon in this very moment. The final exchange in this fight, Genthru tries to outsmart and trick Gon due to Gon being a very innocent thinking person. He thinks that Genthru's telling him the truth and that Genthru's actually giving up, but he was lying and tries to one-shot Gon here. But Gon in the last second protects himself and is now finally following the plan that he was supposed to follow many chapters ago. And the moment Gon activates the plan, he wins pretty much instantly. He covers Genthru in gasoline. This makes it so that Genthru can't use Little Flower anymore. He opens up the pitfall and then just one-shots him with his rock ability. And this final piece here, it shows us how powerful having a plan is in Hunter x Hunter. When you have a plan, you can defeat people who are far more powerful than you are. And when you know what someone's ability is, that's also a big advantage in Nen combat. Gon knowing what Genthru's ability was made it so that they could prepare specifically how to counter it before the fight even started. Meanwhile, Genthru had no idea what Gon's ability was, which put him at a disadvantage even though he didn't know that. So there's a lot of really interesting things that happen throughout this fight. They really lay the foundational groundwork for a lot of the future fights in Hunter x Hunter. Gon versus Genthru, it's actually one of my favorite fights in the manga, and I genuinely think not only is it underrated, I genuinely consider it a genius fight. That's everything I wanted to say. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.